This week on the Two Pointers podcast, Trevor and I are back to cover part two of our four-part series leading into the new NBA season. We're going to preview the Western Conference, go through your standings placement, and give all our thoughts on the Western Conference teams entering the new year. All that and more next. To the Two Pointers podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm Trevor.
And we're back again. Last week we went over the Eastern Conference, where I got to cackle maniacally about how Trevor thought the Celtics would be terrible, and placed the Hornets probably way too high. But here we're in the Western Conference, which, being a Charlotte Hornets fan, I have much less investment in, and really just kind of I don't know. I'm just along for the ride in the West. Trevor, on the other hand, being a Los Angeles Lakers fan, may feel things will get a little bit personal on the side as we go through these rankings. But before we get to all that, how you doing, Trevor?
So funny enough that, of course, the week that I have all the investment and, fun and fired up in this about is the week where I have no voice because I went to a football game. Yay, football's here. Josh and I, by the way, as of right now on a Monday night, I'd be doing a lot better in about 3 hours if we could get a couple Dak Prescott touchdowns and no touchdowns to Dallas Goedert and Miles Sanders, because we play the Liddy Lads podcast right now, and we're up by like 10 in the second quarter of that Cowboys game. And if we were to pull this off, the basketball podcast, yes, guys, you heard that right, the basketball podcast would be 3-0 in the Fantasy Football League of Podcasters. So I'd be doing a lot better in about 3 hours, Josh.
So just checking it right now, we're up 2.
Oh, no. Dak is probably just not getting started quickly. So
he's got 1.56 points.
Ouch. Hopefully we pull that off. We'll update on social tomorrow if we do. Or not if I'm mad. Josh, I'm doing great. I'm ready to do this because this is the final full-on deep dive in terms of individual teams. Next week's going to be more generalization of season predictions. I have a couple questions that I've kind of thought through this offseason that I think are really pertinent to not necessarily teams but players, situations. We'll get to those next week. MVP, Coach of the Year, yada yada yada, right? And then follow that up with fantasy basketball preview. Also, since you've made it this far, if you haven't already, please subscribe, 5-star, and download wherever you listen to us. Apple, Spotify preferred, of course, because we love Apple and Spotify. But wherever else you also find your podcast, at Two Pointers Podcast on TikTok, Facebook.com/the Two Pointers Podcast, and at Two Pointers. Josh, are you proud of me? That's not scripted, and I keep doing that every week, and I'm afraid I'm going to mess up every week, and I don't. Let's start the Western Conference. I'm excited.
I'm great.
I'm also out of breath.
Yeah, I think we can kick off the Western Conference, and I'm going to kind of just lead in with, we're going to go 15 to first like we did last week, saving the suspense and debate for the top teams later. But I would be stunned if we don't agree, because at 15, congratulations, Oklahoma City fans. You did it. You got last. You finally did what you were hoping for.
Well, to the listeners and fans, well, this is why we don't tell each other before going into the episode, because it makes it way more fun for everyone involved. At 15, I have the Houston Rockets going into the 2021-2022 season. We are going to start with one of those two teams here. Josh, where do you want to begin?
Give me your Rockets for last argument.
The fact that we don't know a single thing about this team in terms of consistency going into the year. You could have a
What do
Kevin
you know
Porter
about
Jr.
Oklahoma City?
I know that I like their players a lot better in terms of my opinion of it, but I think there's a lot looming for the Rockets. What I mean by that is obviously the John Wall situation. We don't know where John Wall ends up. We know he's not playing a game. That's obviously not the point. But we also don't know what is being given in return for him. So we also have to think that that part of the puzzle is still missing. However, I also just have to say this right now. Jalen Green was in ESPN's top 100 going into the season. He was 92. Josh, I haven't seen a single organized basketball game of him with a NBA logo on it, not the G League, of course. I don't know enough about this team. This team is probably the least talked about this offseason, other than the draft because of Jalen Green. but they did have a great draft. Well, I'll just go ahead and start on the draft. The part of where I'm convinced, like, they're really young. I like their draft. I just don't like them going into the season. I just think Jalen Green isn't going to win you more than the 15th spot in the West. When the West, believe it or not, from 14 to 10 is pretty bad, but there are teams that are better than them, is how I kind of viewed it. So there's really nothing like super analytical to it. I don't love this roster because they're 3 years from being in the West contention in terms of making the playoffs. So I think the Thunder are better than that. I'll get to my Thunder point when we get to the Thunder. So realistically, they didn't add much other than what they added in the draft.
Yeah, I understand your point there. I don't have the Rockets high. They're right up from that for me at 14. But, I mean, just my only difference is the Rockets have turned the corner now from actively trying to lose, which they did last year post Westbrook Harden trade, to developing talent, where Oklahoma City is still in the actively trying to lose phase with all their draft picks they have stocked up. And while you have Houston, who's going to bring back Kevin Porter Jr., who's added Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and more, first-round picks that they've just added to develop, I think Houston on the back of I am, supremely high on Jalen Green. I'm not calling him a top 100 player in the NBA, but I'm supremely high on Jalen Green. I think that the gap between him and Cade Cunningham was a lot closer than people give it credit for. There was a much smaller gap between their skill levels entering the draft. And I think Houston's going to, play some exciting basketball. They're not going to win a lot, but I couldn't tell you what the Thunder are even going to try to do. The Thunder have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who they've shown to us they're not afraid to shut down for the sake of losing. Luguentz Dort, Pokusevski, and Josh Giddey. Now, I can't name another Thunder player. I really can't.
That's okay. Because those three, to me, are cohesive enough and they're young enough. And I'll get to them when
But here's the thing. Pokusevski and Giddey are projects. They are not, NBA-ready players at all. So you got two, while the Rockets, on the other hand, drafted only NBA-ready players.
Absolutely.
Pokusevski and Giddey are not NBA ready.
Yeah.
So you really just got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luguentz Dort against the world, which I don't think is going to win a lot of games. And more importantly, the organization doesn't want to win right now. I think they're going to finally do what they've been trying to, and they're going to finish in last.
So I'll get to the Thunder more when I'm not much further down. And I have them there, because I think the Rockets still have something worth mentioning in the fact that you hit it right on the head with, the fact that going into the draft and we did our top 5 favorite players, subjectively, whatever that means, 2 of your 5 were drafted by the Rockets.
Mm-hmm.
So look, I'm all for it. I understand why you don't have them at 15. And I knew when you said pre-recording tonight that you were like, we're not going to disagree much between 15. And I was like, oh, we are. I had the Rockets at 15. I knew it, right?
It's not a massive disagreement. Houston and Oklahoma City are both going to be cellar dwellers in the West.
I think the thing with the Rockets that a lot of people are going to really kind of hone in on is the fact that they're going to be a top 3, especially for me. They're going to be a top 3 league pass team. They're young, they're exciting, they're fun. But for me, that doesn't win you games in the West in a year where, yes, they probably will finish 11th or 12th. I get that. But I'm saying that I believe, for the most part, I believe in the teams ahead of them to finish. And this could be a difference between a game or two, to be real with you. I just don't. This is next year, this answer is completely different. The Rockets don't even touch 15 to me unless they completely regress. I just think this isn't the year for them to progress. My question for you, so we don't spend any more time on the Houston Rockets, because we'll probably at some point talk about Jalen Green this year, or where John Wall goes, is the kind of where I was getting at. And I jokingly, you were like, well, what I told you, I was like, I really don't have much to say on the Rockets. My question for you was, where is John Wall's ideal destination to make sense right this moment?
Oh, gosh.
Don't forget, Josh, $41 million John Wall. While you're thinking, I'm going to mention this.
China? I'm serious. I
What
don't
I had
know.
in what I had in
It's
quotes
nothing
behind
against
it.
John Wall. It's the contract and like the instability. Like you can't be sure what you're going to get from him. I can't like before the Celtics signed Schroeder, I'd say Boston desperately needs a point guard, no matter who it is. But post that,
What other Eastern Conference team desperately needs a point guard right now, Josh, that has a trade piece that, albeit the value is very low, the value may match it very well, and the contract matches it as well.
it's not a fit in Philly.
I'm glad you at least knew I was talking about Philly. No, the point
Yeah, I
with the
do, but it's
Rockets,
not. That would be a terrible idea for Philly. Like that doesn't work either.
so
Maybe an
is
idea
keeping
for
Ben
Wall.
Simmons.
Wall would probably love it, but
Yeah.
would you?
So would keeping Ben Simmons be a bad idea too. So the point being
Well, that doesn't
with
look
the
like that's going to be an
Rockets,
option. Keeping Ben Simmons isn't
the
an
reason I
option.
ask you is because I don't have an answer for it either. I haven't played enough with the trade machine to be like, this is the perfect John Wall place. I don't think the Rockets know, but I can tell you what they're thinking. They're thinking, oh man, we might have lost the James Harden trade pretty quickly. Let's not lose on the John Wall trade before it even happens, I think is really where they're coming from. No, the question literally in air quotes, whenever I was telling you, like, why do I have the Rockets at 15? I don't have enough about the Rockets, I told you. And I literally put in air quotes next to where's John Wall's ideal destination. This question is because the Rockets are going into the season giving me nothing more to ask you about. These questions are not pertinent on MVP. They're not
You
pertinent
could
on
ask
rookie of
me
the
who's
year.
going to be the better rookie, Jalen Green or Alfred.
See, rookie of the year talk is next week. We're going to get to rookies next week. We got an entire segment on rookie of the year, and I'm saving that. These are all team or playoff pertinent, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, they didn't really add anything. Houston Rockets at 15. We can go on to 14 because I'll go over the Thunder not much further down. So, what do you have at 14?
Do you have the Thunder at 14?
I have the Thunder at 13.
Oh, okay.
That's why
14 was for me was Houston.
Okay, so then
it's I had OKC then Houston.
Not far off then. I have Sacramento.
Okay, I have them at 13. So we're back.
There we go. See, we balanced it back out.
There.
There we go. All right. So let me find Sacramento on the notes here.
Since I already made the argument about OKC, let's do that and then go to
That's fine. Cool. So basically just pretend we're on 13 for a second there, listeners. So the issue for me that I didn't have them higher is because of everything you said 4 minutes ago. It's those three guys and everyone else. The other thing I'm hopeful for, though, and why I'm hopeful for, and this is the only team, 4 players, the only team that I look at and I go, last year had an impact on my ranking. I don't take in consideration much of last year. It's very similar to the fantasy football example. You don't draft last year's best player or quarterback or wide receiver. You go off what you think will happen this year. And that's how I do my rankings. And that's how, quite frankly, you do from what I can understand. They outperformed. The congratulations you gave them 5 minutes ago, we were giving them last year too. And those 3 or 4 players outplayed every bit of the expectation. Now, granted, I get there was a couple bad wins at the end of the year against some big playoff teams that really projected where they finished, but they also put themselves in the position to be able to win those games. And yes, they're not sitting SGA. That's just not happening. His development, they're going to continue to play him until either he passes out from exhaustion from playing 45 minutes a game or until they put enough pieces around him.
They're going to rest SGA when they're not trying to win.
Oh, when they're not trying to win, absolutely. My point is they're not like intentionally sitting him. They're playing him. Their average roster age is the other reason I'm really excited for them. They're going to run. They're going to be fun, and they're probably going to beat some people on some weird nights, on some back-to-backs and some 4 games and 5, whatever, right? It's going to happen. Their average age of their roster is 23.5 years old. The league average is 26.2. Josh, they are almost 3 entire years younger than the league average. I think they're just going to scare people. And
just because I think this is interesting, I'm just going to read you the Oklahoma City Thunder roster, not including the two-way players. I'm just going to leave those out. This is the main Oklahoma City Thunder roster as it stands right now. And it is young, but this kind of goes to my point of whether or not, I think they're going to be worse than Houston. Darius Baisley, Gabriel Deck, Mamadi Diakite, Lugan Stort, Rob Edwards, Derek Favors, Josh Giddey, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Ty Jerome, Veet Krejci, Theo Maledon, Trey Mann, Mike Muscala, Alexei Pokusevsky, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Isaiah Roby, Kenrich Williams, and DJ Wilson.
A lot of young guys that I like.
Trevor, that's a G League roster.
That's a G League roster that finished
Plus
well above
Shai
expectation.
Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, that's a G League roster that finished well above expectation, and that's where I came from with this pick. I'm okay with 13 because guess what? 13 and 15, is someone really going to attack me on Twitter for it? Sure, 13 to 15, but the Thunder fans, cough, cough, the only one we know,
They want to be in last.
They want to be in last, but they're going to not hate me for this pick. It's 13 is really not much worse than 15. One lottery ball change. Thunder fans know that. Sorry, Grayson. A lottery ball change, shows where they finished. They draft 6th last year instead of 3rd. But nonetheless, I just like this team. I can't not put a team in 15th because I don't like them. Like I vice versa with the Rockets. Like I like both of them. I like the Thunder more. I'm ready to see it with the Rockets, right? So. The Kings, where do you have them? Do the Kings make any sense?
Question
thank you. See, you gotta keep me on track here because I'm gonna forget. I'll ask the second one first because I think it makes more sense for the timeline. Okay. Yeah, I told you I randomly do that sometimes. If you're Sam Presti, Josh, put yourself in Sam Presti's whatever size shoe.
Wire draft picks by any means necessary. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, you're like summoning it. Got it. If you're Sam Presti and a disgruntled star wants out pre-deadline, I'm not giving you one because I don't want you to think of the player. I want you to think of the scenario.
There's only one star on Oklahoma City's roster. Oh, you mean a different roster?
In a different roster, yeah.
Cool.
So disgruntled star, like in insert guys that we think could. Okay, we've already talked about it for 18 months. There's plenty of
potential people there.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's truly right now the guy that wants out other than Ben Simmons. So insert star that's not Ben Simmons. If they want out pre-deadline. If you're Sam Presti, do you make a move using the 1 million draft picks that you have, or do you wait it out and try to use cap space in the future to build out multiple quality veterans that can help this young roster better in the future? Can I give you an example if you're
I'm going to say, no, I've got an answer. I'm going to say no, but.
Okay.
There's a because I've kind of gone through my head all of the potential disgruntled stars that we've talked about recently. And the majority of them are in the 28 to 29 range. That's all I know. There's one. Yeah. There's one that isn't. And in the bizarre scenario that he wants out, you pull the trigger, and that's Luka Doncic. Because there was reports of Luka not being happy in Dallas towards the end of the offseason. We thoroughly covered the turmoil in the Mavericks front office. If somehow the season goes south in Dallas and Luka wants out, Presti should offer. Yeah, 100%. Everyone else, Lillard, Beal, Simmons, definitely not Simmons. Insert player here, no.
Where the thought process of that question comes from, and we'll get to a second star that's under 25 or near 25 that I'll give you the reasoning for later. The reason I bring it up is because at the end of the day, I think I agree with you. I think Sam Presti has no reason to get rid of these picks because at this point, we don't know what these picks project to. And at this point, other than Luka, does it really make sense?
Mm-mm.
No, probably not. I just wanted to see, because you're really pertinent on these. You have 15 roster spots and the Thunder have 31 picks. I want to know where your head was at this moment. This question could be completely different next season, of course. The other question, quite frankly, I know the answer because of where you put them. Josh, can this team overperform expectation and try to make the play-in or make the play-in?
Could they? Sure. Should they? Absolutely not.
Okay, fine. I like this.
That shouldn't be the goal.
To die on the hill. That's fine. I'm willing to die on the hill of the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Staked their future on these high school sophomores that are going to be available in the draft in a few years, and they shouldn't be trying to win in to ruin that spot. And that's coming from me, who doesn't like tanking at all. That if they've thoroughly put their boat with these high school sophomores, and you might as well just make sure you get the best ones. Okay, so now we can move on to the Kings. What are your initial thoughts on Sacramento?
I thought you were going to do that. No. Can I read you the first three words of my notes?
Great, go ahead.
It's the Kings.
That's a good point.
Any NBA fan of the last 5 to 15 years understands exactly what I mean by that statement. And I'm just going to PSA this before I say another word. Kings fans, we genuinely feel bad for you. And this is all in love and respect. It has nothing to do with, like, you know, out of spite, or, and this comes from a Lakers fan, by the way, out of spite, out of, you know, making fun of. It's just, I cannot believe in the Sacramento Kings until the Sacramento Kings give me a season that they show me that I can believe in them. That's literally the only reason. I got him at 14 only because I like De'Aaron Fox, and I think he's better than any player on the Thunder at this current moment. And I like Shea a lot. But De'Aaron Fox is going to win them more games than, you know, the conglomerate of the Thunder roster that would. So, the Rockets roster. Sorry, I had that backwards. I just don't know right now. Josh, out of the 3 players they have that are cornerstone pieces right now, Fox, Bagley, Hield, very well in the next 12 months, only 2 or 1 or 0 of them may be on that roster. And that's the part where I'm kind of like, I just haven't seen enough. I haven't believed in them enough. I can't put the Kings any higher than 13 or 14. I have them at 14.
Bagley already wants out.
Exactly. And then Hield was also offered in many Lakers trades. So clearly there's that relationship that may not be broken, but it may be torn a little, and it may not be repairable.
You did forget one key, I think, cornerstone, and that was Tyrese Halliburton, who was
I did
quietly the third best rookie behind Ball and Edwards last year. I frankly have the Kings at 13, at least not lower like you do, because one, I think their talent is good enough to win games, especially if they had a happy Marvin Bagley. They don't, but if they did.
Or healthy.
But beyond that, they've got Fox, they've got Halliburton, they've got Hield, they've got Davion Mitchell. 4 players I like a lot. I don't know how that works as a system, but a team that did win 31 games last year somehow will find a way to be a bit more mediocre than bad. The Kings as an organization, I think, needs some massive change in leadership. It's not the players. It's not Luke Walton. It's something. I think it has to go higher into the front office.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's deeper than that.
It's much deeper than that with the problem that there is in Sacramento. But yeah, Bagley, if I'm going to pick one to be gone, it'd be Bagley.
I don't want to. No, I think I think Fox is the only one left in 12 months.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to keep one of the 3, that's the one you should keep.
Mm-hmm. But then where are you at? You're a Fox and Halliburton backcourt. That's probably one of the faster and shorter backcourts in the NBA. It's like a repeat of Sexton, but hasn't won much anyway either.
Hadn't had a chance.
Yeah, but clearly the Cavs.
I don't think that from a Hornets fan whose team is employing a similar point guard and combo guard starting backcourt strategy with Ball and Rozier, I think it can work. I realize Ball is a very tall point guard, and that helps. But
yeah, my problem is I don't want to spend any more time on the Kings, because my question for you is, Josh, what is something hopeful Kings fans have to look forward to if there is any left?
De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton and Davion Mitchell.
The reason I asked that question is, are we a year away from De'Aaron Fox being the next guy that is like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of losing. I'm sick of living and staying in Sacramento and paying all these heavy California taxes for a team that doesn't, quite frankly, support me. I asked that question in an honest, genuine manner.
Mm-hmm. I feel like De'Aaron Fox is the kind of guy, I mean, maybe he goes that route.
You have to always assume someone's going to do that in this day and age with the NBA.
Yeah.
Seriously. That's what it is.
But I feel like it may be just if the Kings just had a plan. It's not like with other franchises where they can't seem to win. I couldn't tell you what the Kings' plan is.
I couldn't tell you what it is day to day, much less year to year.
Yeah.
Like, That's a great point. I didn't even put that together in my head. I didn't even think to realize
you had
that's
plenty
true.
of guys like Damian Lillard potentially wanting out of Portland when it's clear what Portland's plan is.
Yeah.
I don't know what Sacramento's plan is. They just kind of seem to be, they just trot a basketball team out there every year and see what happens.
All right. So to recap, at 15, you have the Thunder. As I just realized, 20 minutes in this episode, I haven't been writing anything down. 14, you had the
Houston
Rockets, and I had the Kings. And then at 13,
I had the Kings, and you had the Thunder.
All right, we're back to 12, where really anybody can make the playoffs from here. From here on out, anybody has a possibility of making the playoffs.
Yep.
All right, 12, go ahead.
San Antonio Spurs.
We don't disagree. That's awesome. Can I piggyback something from last year?
Yep.
I'm actually shocked we don't disagree, because last year we completely disagreed, and you definitely made sure I knew that I was doubting Coach Pop. And I'm proud of you for doubting Coach Pop with me this year, because last year, obviously, there was still the DeRozan thing. They had more talent than I guess I give them credit for. Coach Pop is obviously the ultimate leader, but this team's in the same boat as the Thunder. They're really young, with the direction of the fact that I'm okay with them not making the playoffs for the next 3 years to rebuild.
The thing is, they went out and signed guys that weren't young in the offseason, and it confuses me it seemed like they're gearing up for kind of a losing run to acquire assets, which is kind of a weird spot, because you got to kind of be honest with yourself if you're San Antonio and if you're Popovich, if you're gearing up for a few years of losing to acquire assets. Greg Popovich is not going to still be the coach when time comes around for these guys to start winning games.
Absolutely.
And as far as the confidence in Coach Pop, I don't know if my confidence in Coach Pop will ever be the same after the Team USA in the Olympics.
You can't. I thought the same thing. You cannot tie Team USA to this decision.
But it says something about coaching and what he can. Now, I'm not going to. Greg Popovich is probably, I would put him top 3 NBA coaches of all time with Pat Riley and Phil Jackson. But you have to consider it as to where he's at in this day and age with this class of guys. Yeah, I think that's just where San Antonio is.
I can tell the hesitation. I can tell the hesitation because I feel like you're afraid they're going to win 10 extra games than you predict, and they're going to be in that.
Oh, they definitely have the ability to do that. They definitely have because.
Can I tell you why I have them at 12?
They are a star. They have some star-studded role players.
Star-studded young players, not just role
young
players,
but it's like
players.
They are just like a who's who of good role guys on their roster.
I'm going to piggyback the Coach Pop thing that I softly alley-ooped to you, and you continued with it. And I'm going to slam it home here. I'm going to tell you why I have him at 12, and this is the literal only reason. I think this is Coach Pop's final season.
Yeah.
I just got chills. This is a visual podcast. The hair on my arm stood up when I said that. And I'll tell you why. This is the first year where their average age of roster was under 28 years old in his entire tenure as a head coach.
Because he's always won.
This year, they're 25 years old. I'm going to tie this all together. Who else's final year is it that they're actually going to play it out and retire? That he coached with and took over for? Coach K. I'm just using the poetic example. The same season that a legendary college coach has a similar situation where he's kind of bringing in young assets here. College is a little different, obviously, right? But they've got a lot of young guys. Again, they're really rebuilding. They're giving it to the next guy. Unfortunately, we don't know who the next guy is. Wait.
I think it should.
I think we do. Josh, I think we do know who it is.
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going with this?
That would be great. Yeah, I mean, it should be Becky Hammon.
My hot take, Greg Popovich retired, and this isn't a super hot take, but I haven't given one this offseason yet. My hot take is at some point in the next 3 months, Greg Popovich announces his retirement and starts a reunion tour or
I don't think he's not the type of coach to do a goodbye tour.
But if
he'd announce it at the end of the year and leave.
Really? See, I hate that for him.
He's never like Greg Popovich regularly makes fun of the media scrum and like
Neither was Coach K, I thought
banners
maybe.
it off.
I didn't think Coach K would do that either.
No, he definitely would. Popovich regularly like tries to give the media as little as possible. He's not going to go on a bells and whistles media celebration as the Spurs kick around to a 30-52 record.
That's true. I guess my point was like I wanted that if this is his final year, and every sign of the roster tells me that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to use the roster as my question transition for you. You actually kind of already said it. So this roster is loaded with young talent, quite frankly. I say loaded in a good way. There are a lot of these players I would take on any other team and be happy with the result. I'm going to name them for you so that you have reference. DeJounte Murray, I almost left DeJounte Murray off of this list, by the way, because he has taken a step, but he even can take another one. He can take that De'Aaron Fox step. He can take that, Buddy Hield
as far
step.
as the players on this team, this is DeJounte's team. He's the guy.
Oh, yeah. I use him, though, like, I don't want you to necessarily cop him out as the example of the answer. Okay. But he's on this list because he hasn't taken the third jump that really gets him into that, like, could be an all-star tier that I think he has the potential to do. Out of the fun, exciting young roster, who makes the biggest leap and helps the Spurs win more? There's 10 more games that I referred to that you're afraid they're going to do. Some examples: DeJounte Murray, Zach Collins, Bryn Forbes, Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones, Jakob Poeltl, Lucas Samanic, I always mess his name up, Devin Vassell, Lonnie Walker, and Derek White.
Is Bryn Forbes back in San Antonio?
He is.
I missed that. Wow.
I learned that today, actually.
It's great young talent that are role guys. I'd love to see Lonnie Walker take the jump because I feel like he's one of those guys that he's got a lot of tools. He's not the other guys like Poeltl and Collins, who are great rim defenders, or Samanic, who's a great kind of mid-range Euro style scorer. I'd love to see Walker take the leap, but I don't think he will. I think it's Murray, and I think it's Derek White.
Oh, I like that. See, the Derek White one I did not expect, because my answer outside of Murray, if Murray's the assumptive next step to almost all-star, it was Lonnie Walker and Keldon Johnson. I think Keldon Johnson, because of the Team USA thing, yes, I get it. Top Pop played him. He was on Team USA. Got it.
But I thought he was really impressive.
I thought he was too. And I think there's something to that. I think there's not just he's playing against some of the best talent, and not just the NBA, but the world, right? Mm-hmm. It's the Olympics. And I think he proved his own. So I like that question because I wanted to see where your head was at. And I'm glad to know that you think these are a bunch of role players, because if the whole point of a role player is to mesh well with others, well, if you've got 8 really good young role players, can they do really well together and mesh? Probably.
Team basketball.
With a guy like Coach Pop, you probably can. Hot take again. Goodbye. Not rest in peace. Good Lord, Josh, I am tired. Right off into the sunset, Coach Popovich is what I was trying to say. Who do you have at 11?
I'm going to preface this because you're probably going to be kind of surprised where I have them here. I'm predicting really kind of an epic blow up based on the way I've seen things going with this organization, and that they're just going to have a kind of implosion this season.
The Los Angeles Lakers.
No, I've got New Orleans Pelicans at 11.
That's not okay.
I think Zion officially asks for a trade this year and goes out of New Orleans.
Okay. We can just roll into the Pelicans because I have them at 10.
Mm-hmm.
I have them at 10 because I think they're talented enough to make the playoffs.
They are. Yeah, they're talented enough, but I think they're going to implode. I think losing Lonzo was bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When Zion's gone and it's just Brandon Ingram and some other guys, I'm realizing like there's some good players in there because I'm throwing Devontae Graham, who I'm a big fan of, in with the other guys.
Josh Hart too. Josh Hart's still on that roster. They brought him back.
Zion's the future of the franchise, and if he asks to get out, which I could see happening, as much as I'd hate to see it, I don't want to see that happen to New Orleans. I think they're going to implode. I think they're going to have another bad season. This whole Zion rush of the last 3 years is going to be all for naught.
So why I said this is going to be boring for the back half for the non-playoff teams of the West for the listeners is because I agree with you. I just think the implode happens after the season. And even if they get into the play-in at 10 and they lose in the play-in or make the playoffs and lose at the 8th seed, they can still implode. There's no reason they would not implode at that point. I think it's actually deeper than Zion. I actually sent you an article that I'm glad you didn't actually text me much opinion on yet, because I'm glad we can address it right now. According to multiple people at the Bleacher Report, there are multiple people in the Pelicans front office.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There are multiple people in the Pelicans front office who, quote, started texting about David Griffin and calling him, oh my gosh, what was his name from the Bulls documentary? Yes, David Krause. Yes, that if a singular Josh, an ounce of it, 1% of that story is true, this team implodes in the next 12 months.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think it has anything to do with Zion at that point. It has everything to do with, we thought David Griffin was going to be the savior of that franchise for the next 5 years. I can't, like, my jaw dropped when I read that article. It's not like they called him some like awful name, by the way. It's not like they, cursed him. But they called him the most controversial bad GM ever.
It signifies that there's this massive divide between team and front office. And that kind of goes back to my Sacramento point, which is when there's that significant divide and kind of a systemic issue, you're not going to find success.
That's it. I mean, that's what it comes down to for me. And I'm okay with the fact that this team rallies together. Zion has another 27 point per game season, and shoots the most efficient, EFG efficiency field goal percentage in NBA history. Like, I'm just not shocked if something like that happens. He was in the top 8 last year in that stat all time. It's just going to keep happening. He's going to play well, and they're going to be fine.
A cohesive team, no implosion, healthy Zion. Pelicans, I think, are a play-in team.
Yeah. That's
I don't think that's going to happen. That's so many ifs.
I just, after them or with them being there at 10 for me, like, there's just enough teams in front of them that I think are better and more talented or can keep it together, that where I was like, 10 is fine. Who I have at 11, we can kind of, well, you probably have who I have at 11 at 10. So it's the Pelicans.
Who's your 11?
I had the Memphis Grizzlies.
Wow.
So I knew you were going to say that. I was afraid you were going to say that.
Wow.
I think the Pelicans are more talented. I think the Grizzlies have the potential to take the step back because of that factor. I think they transitioned. I mean, quite frankly, they traded. Hold on. Let me just make sure I got this right. They traded, yes, to get the 10th pick to get the guy they wanted, but they traded Jonas Valanciunas, a top 10 center in the NBA, to the Pelicans. So I'm fine with it being this is 10 and 11 after the 11th spot. Who cares? Either one of these teams, like the Memphis thing at 11 is not like having the Celtics at 11. Like, it's not the same, divide there. I just don't, this core right now for the Grizzlies, sorry, Chris Vernon, is not a play-in team or a playoff team. Yes, last year they outperformed expectation. They outperformed a lot of things, but they also, I think, took a major step back in who they drafted and who they traded away. They clearly took their foot off the gas of let's keep trying to win and keep trying to get into that playoff play-in spot. I think they kind of took the eyes off the prize there, and that's why. And now, granted, I don't hate everything they did. I like the fact they got Jarrett Culver at the price of nothing, pretty much. They got Steven Adams, of course, in exchange for Jonas Valanciunas. I don't love either of them, but Jonas is better. I'm willing to admit that. But to trade up to get Zaire Williams at 10, Josh, the same Zaire Williams that was projected to go 25th in the NBA draft. Everywhere.
Yeah.
They wanted him at 10. Now, granted, he had a lot of things going wrong for him last year. Health, parents, death. There's a lot going on for Zaire Williams. I hope he has a great career. But 10 was really high. That's it. Memphis Grizzlies could really surprise me and be an 8 seed next year again, and I'm not going to cry about it. I'm going to be fine with it.
I'm going to provide a defense of the Memphis Grizzlies, I guess.
That is very punny. Oh, come on.
How was that? I wasn't trying to do that.
A defense of the Memphis, the most, oh, never mind. Just do it. Just come on. Let's do this.
One goes back to they've already got an all-star on the roster, and that's Ja Morant, who's going to take a step forward again. Ja Morant.
So do the Pelicans, by the way. That's
hung with the big boys. Yeah, but the thing is, there's one, the Pelicans young star, Zion is injury prone. And
Sure.
Two, Brandon Ingram. Ja is at a much further place ahead right now than Ingram was at this point in his career, which I think it sets him apart. Ja Morant's the young star to take the team. You then just have a lot of guys that are going to help. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of Jonas being dealt away. I thought he was much more talented. But Steven Adams is going to be a great bruiser underneath, which if you want to run that grit and grind, which they've kind of gotten away from, but if you want to bulk up the defense.
They should. It's off brand now. Let's move on.
Kyle Anderson, an overperforming role player, a Popovich guy, come out of the Popovich system, does well. Desmond Bane, best rookie three-point shooter that we covered last season. Dylan Brooks, underrated, more than a role player, just really a star scorer who's got the ability to play well at both ends of the floor. You talk about bringing in Culver, who's a project. You've got Brandon Clark, who I'm still high on, despite the fact he's a little undersized. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. eventually takes that step forward, and that's the big piece. He has to take that step forward for Memphis to be that number. It doesn't even have to be the two. I think Dylan Brooks is good enough to be the two right now to Ja Morant, but to be the third guy on Memphis's team. I do like them a lot better because you said they overperformed. I thought they showed what they can do as a team and just how far they can go with a player like Ja carrying them. And I think he can continue to do that.
I'll summarize my position on it just based on how you described that. I really like that, but I will say this. They are the same young core. So we aren't far off on the Grizzlies, to be fair. But they are the same young core led by a really good player, star player, that regressed in a very important position in the Western Conference. And they showed what they can do, but this young core alone can't win a playoff series, to me.
No, but we're talking about
making the play.
11th.
You got to win, and you got to win the play-in to then try to win the – and look, I get it. They beat the Jazz on the road in game one. Ja Morant also scored 44 points.
Yeah, but once again, we're talking about you placed them at 11. I'm not talking about trying to win a playoff series. I'm saying that they're going to do better than finish in 11th place.
The gap between 11
in the play-in.
Yeah, the gap between 11 and 10, I believed more in the talent of the Pelicans. That was the only reason that they're flopped. You flop them, and guess what? They probably still finish at 10, 9, 8. Like that 10 to 11 for me is a game gap. Like it's a gap where we don't know who's in that 11 spot until like the last week of the season. So it's realistically like somebody had to be 11. You know that. Like we've done these records now. This is our second year. This is my favorite, quite frankly, segment that we do. Somebody had to be 11 with the play-in. It's not like I have them at 11 with the 1 through 8 playoff, no play-in, right? Like that's a big difference. To be clear, if this is 1 through 8, no play-in, they're 9. That's how I looked at it, right? They're the team that just misses out, and they have before. That's been the predicament they're in, and I'm fine with that. They're going to win more games than I expect. They're going to do the Spurs 10-game plus that I should see coming, but I'm okay with that because if that regression just hurts too much. That I'll leave it at that. My question for you, funny enough, was: do you long-term believe in this young core? How it is to this moment?
Absolutely.
Okay, so long-term.
We obviously are on different.
3 years from now, are you like the Grizzlies are a 7 seed? Are the Grizzlies closer to being the Hornets at 6 this year than they are at falling back out of this core? Like, is this core? Do you think this core gets better in 3 years, or this core gets worse in 3 years?
Way better.
Okay,
way better.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and that's why they're at 11. for me. They're just outside this next year. I think they build on this year if they outperform themselves.
All right. I don't have Memphis at 10. I have them higher than 10.
Okay, that's fine.
So roll into my number 10, which is the one that I thought I'm placing them a little higher, but based on I thought they did well at the end of the season last year, and they've got the roster for if things go right. I love it, and that's Minnesota.
Bingo.
If things go right, I love Minnesota's roster, and I've just been waiting on this breakout, but you can't tell me you're going to bring a trio of Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and Anthony Edwards in, have things go right, which for right now, we don't see a reason why it wouldn't. There's nothing epic collapse on the horizon. Freak injuries are the things that are there that I'm not going to predict. None of that happens. The Timberwolves could be really good. They could be fun to watch. They could be exciting.
Before I completely and utterly agree with you, I'm going to burn it down and ask you my question first.
Okay.
Literally 3 days ago, they fired Gerson Rosas.
Yes.
Who, nonetheless, if it's bad things that happen that we think might have happened, if it's the fact that he didn't want to trade for Ben Simmons, which, by the way, they're still the front runners for Ben Simmons, which makes this even more of a weird pick. I kind of kept him out of it like I did with the Sixers one. I really actually kept the Sixers completely out of it, but you know what I mean. So that aside, this Timberwolves are one extra dumpster fire away from being complete. The state of Minnesota burning on fire. Sorry, Timberwolves fans. But Josh, Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and a first-round pick for Karl Anthony Towns. Who says no if the T-Wolves blow it up?
If the T-Wolves blow it up?
If the T-Wolves completely implode this year and Edwards takes a step back, which he won't, but Cat gets unhappy, D'Angelo Russell ends up being the bad guy. Like, I'm just giving you a scenario that could happen. That I think
that's a steal from Minnesota. Why would New York do that?
Julius Randle, RJ Barrett in a first for Karl Anthony Towns, who's worth that.
Yeah.
Who says no?
New York. I don't
really.
The Knicks, although I'm down on them this next year, they got a team they can run with. Why do you want to tear that apart right now?
Because Karl Anthony Towns is available. People forget he exists. He's a top 5 center in the NBA on a team that has not won in his career more than 30 games.
Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns we're talking about.
Hasn't played a full season, I don't believe.
He's played, he's been off and on. I get it.
Yeah.
It's the Joel Embiid example. I think he's closer to Joel Embiid than he is to the 5th center. It's Karl Anthony Towns we're talking about here. That's why I was like, who says no? Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, forget the first round pick.
He's not the defensive or the strong player that Joel Embiid is.
No, I'm talking
or
about.
Is he the leader?
I'm talking about tier of centers in my ranking.
Oh,
he's
sure.
closer to Joel Embiid than he is to the 5th player. That's where I'm like, that's worst case scenario for Minnesota. Let me go completely back to where you were when we started this example at you have them at 10. I have them at 9. I really believe in this Minnesota team this year. I think those 3 players alone are similar to why, like, my example of the Hornets was like Ball and his conglomerate of, he had more than 2 players, but I think those 3 are better than Ball and whoever else, right? But I was using that example as the parallel.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3, I think, are enough. I think it's similar to the Pelican example. I hate to use the same like broken record, but I mean, how can you not like Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell, who, by the way, all 3 of those guys, game-wise, if you watch basketball every day for the last 15 years like we have, they play well together. Their style of play plays well together. I just don't know who plays defense.
Oh, I'll tell you who plays defense. You got Patrick Beverley, Malik Beasley, Ed Davis, Jaden McDaniels, who I didn't realize had left Charlotte. Torian Prince, Naz Reid.
Can I clarify?
Some defenders.
I meant play defense out of those 3.
Oh, out of those 3. I thought you meant on the team. I was saying they can go the Brooklyn route of don't have your stars play defense and have everyone else play defense.
Hey, if that gets them in a playing spot, Minnesota Timberwolves fans, you should be as happy as you've ever been since you had Kevin Garnett. So
they have a good defensive supporting cast.
They do.
And that's secretly, like, under the radar.
They do. No, absolutely. And I don't have much more on them. I really think it comes down to, if that situation goes imploded or goes bad or goes sour, that package was the one that I just threw together.
Well, I think we kind of evened up because I ended up having Memphis at 9. So we've kind of agreed on the outside the top 8. The bottom 7 in the West we agree on. Some of the placements are a bit off. But we can roll in to number 8. Let's go ahead and go with your number 8, Trevor.
My number 8 is the Portland Trailblazers.
Okay.
Can I just give you 30
seconds?
Discuss more.
Yeah.
30 seconds is all I need. The other 7 teams in front of them are completely and utterly better. I don't care how well Damian Lillard plays. I think it's literally the West this year is, and I was going to address this at the beginning of the episode, why this episode would be boring up until this point. No pun intended or no joke. I think you literally draw a line in the sand between 8 and 9 this year. Doesn't matter who wins 9, 10, 11 at that point. From 8 up, anybody can be competitive. But realistically, for me, it's 7 and up, and that's why I have the Blazers at 8. I also see a scenario similar to the Minnesota example where I see a complete and utter explosion, and I'll get to that in a moment after you divulge who you have at 8, or we can keep going through the Blazers. I don't care.
So I think we may digress more on Portland.
That's fine.
That's tough. I think.
Hold on. For reference, who do you have at 8?
4 through 8 in the West is very close.
It is. No,
and then there's the top 3. At 8, and this is going to sound off, and it's all because of one injury, is the Los Angeles Clippers.
Okay. So then here, I'll go ahead and summarize this. They're at 7
I just think that the Clippers.
7 for me.
Okay.
So then, we're not far off.
With no Kawhi, I don't have faith in. They overperformed without Kawhi in the playoffs vastly. Over a whole season. Now, we're not talking about how they're going to play in the playoffs. We're talking about how they'll end up in the standings the whole season. They ended up in 4th despite being a much better team last year because of how much Kawhi and PG rested. Now, no Kawhi and PG still probably resting half the time. This team is going to squeak in by the skin of their teeth. Now, once they get to the playoffs, if you have Kawhi coming back, this team could make some noise and could win a 1-8 matchup that the 1 seed's not going to want to see. But from a purely standings perspective, the Clippers look bad.
Let's keep going with the Clippers because I think there's a lot to unpack here because I think the Blazers we're going to spend enough time on anyway. So I'm going to be fast with this because I thought there was some radio silence thing there with the Kawhi injury, and there was. For 3 weeks, we didn't know what the heck was going on. What I was referring to radio silence was however, post July 13th when he underwent surgery. We haven't really heard anything up until about 4 days ago. All it took was a little digging, and I found an article from Om Youngmisuk, and I'm probably mispronouncing that from ESPN, one of the better ESPN writers, and quote, Lawrence Frank, who's the president of basketball operations for the Clippers, if you didn't know, reiterated in a press conference that Kawhi Leonard has a, quote, significant rehab and, quote, no one knows the return of time frame or the time frame. Yeah. So this number 7, 8, wherever, we don't disagree on the Clippers. I think this roster is just, and it's going to be the same thing with this back half of the West until we get to the top 5. Realistically, I'm going to say it's because of the rosters being better than the people in front of them. I did that very heavily this year for the West because I think it comes down to a talent thing in the West. You just have to be better than the guy in front of you and the guy you're going to play every night. And I think the Clippers on paper are better than the Blazers. Just talent-wise, not Paul George, Damian Lillard-wise. Let's be clear on record here. Damian Lillard's a top 10 player. Paul George is not. But Paul George's supporting cast, Reggie Jackson and others, are better on paper to me because of what the Blazers lost. They really only brought Norman Powell back. Outside of that, they lost a lot. They have a lot of good players, but I'm not saying
added
the Clippers aren't.
Are you sure you know how much the Blazers added?
Yes, I had it in front of me. That's why I'm fine with starting. We can go back.
We'll argue about that in a second, I guess. The Clippers, just if anyone disagrees, the Clippers are going to finish in 8th. This is under a scenario Kawhi doesn't play to the playoffs, quite frankly.
That's why I brought that up.
I don't think he will play in the 82-game regular season.
Correct.
You have Paul George as your star player, which is great. Who's going to rest a significant number of games, maybe play 60 in the regular season.
Probably 60, 65. Yeah.
After that, your next best player is Reggie Jackson, who had a career year and has never looked like this before.
He did in Oklahoma City. He did in Oklahoma City, to be clear. That last year.
Not this good.
The one that got him the contract, it did. He was really good.
Then you got Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard and Eric Bledsoe. I hope Paul George can keep them upright because these are good guys who can win you a playoff series, maybe like all in, going 100% every night. Great coaching. Whole season? No.
I'm willing to ride it out, and that's why I have them at 7, because the real only major hurt them loss is
Beverly. We'll say if they get in there at 8 or 7, Beverly. I don't want to be 1 or 2 taking that matchup in the first round.
Right. And that's where I think they finish. I think they finish 7 or 8. I don't think it's a big difference because their only real departure is Patrick Beverly, and if you want to say Rajon Rondo for leadership purposes, which they might need this year, to kind of
departure of Rondo is bigger than you make it up to be there. I think the departure of Beverly is as well.
Absolutely. But what they gained, I liked. I like Justice Winslow. I like Harry Giles. I like
I'm very low on Justice Winslow.
I think he's just waiting to. I think he's in this straight jacket, and he's just waiting to explode out of it. I'll say that for the next 5 years till he retires. They re-signed Nicholas Batum, Reggie Jackson, like you said, and then obviously they got Kawhi Leonard back on a bag. They also drafted Keon Johnson, who athletically I think is a great player. I'm not very high on him, but also they drafted Jason Preston. They're going to play and they're going to rally around the fact that they got the story of the tournament last year and Jason Preston. Shout out to Jason Preston. I just had to give him 3 seconds there. No, I really do. I just like this roster better. That's all it comes down to. We can argue about the Blazers now. I'm ready.
I don't have the Blazers at 7.
What?
So I said we're going to disagree.
Okay. All right.
I have Golden State at 7.
Okay. Can I just ask, do you have the Blazers at 6?
Yes.
So then we aren't that far off. It's the top 5 where we're really going to disagree because I have Golden State at 6.
Okay.
So then we're actually a lot. This West is weird, man. Last year, the West we completely disagreed on. That is crazy. Okay. So I almost want to hear Portland more than I want to hear Golden State.
Okay.
In terms of sales pitch me. Car salesman pitched me the Portland Trailblazers this season.
I don't know if I can car salesman, but frankly,
I don't know if I can do all that. Come on now.
Yeah, I have to admit, I was with you. I was ready to blow it up with Portland in the offseason.
I'm still ready to.
I think they've somehow salvaged a strange level of stability I wasn't expecting. I love that Chauncey's there. I think the coaching that Chauncey Billups is going to bring in is incredible. You've got Lillard. You've got McCollum as your base. You bring back Norman Powell, who can't be stressed enough how great Norman Powell looked last year.
Absolutely. I have to completely agree with you there.
It can't be I think Norman Powell is one of, if not the most criminally underrated player in the NBA.
If Gary Trent Jr. doesn't have the breakout he does in Toronto, they regret that trade entirely.
Yeah, no, Portland still wins the trade.
Absolutely.
As great as Gary Trent Jr. did, Norman Powell's still way better.
Oh, yeah. Third best player in that playoff series last year.
Additions, Ben McLemore is a good role player. Really fits the Portland system very well. Larry Nance Jr. is supposed to be. Tony Snell, who can play good defense. Cody Zeller brought in as a big man replacement for Zach Collins. When healthy, Cody Zeller is a better big man than Zach Collins.
Absolutely.
If Nurkic stays healthy, big if, given the last few seasons, it's just one of those if things again. I can't not like the Portland team. I think they play, it's a high level scoring style of basketball, can really get up and down the court. I think Chauncey is going to bring a stability and kind of a good relations kind of coaching style to hopefully partner with Damian Lillard to really take this team somewhere. Chauncey has the experience of walking into a franchise that wasn't winning and kind of being that leader to take it to a championship. as he did in Detroit, kind of rallying a group of guys that was not like really had that major all-star, that major superstar that was poking out from it, and kind of bringing them to a title. I think if Chauncey as a coach can do what he did as a point guard in Detroit, and Damian Lillard and Chauncey work well together, this team could get somewhere. Enough for me to say 6. That's my elevator pitch of Portland breaking out as a great basketball team this year, going from good to great. I think they'll be on that upper 6 end of the Western Conference.
Reader's Digest for me. I think Chauncey Billups can be a better coach for a team that's completely rebuilding and be that leader from the start to the end of them being really good. And guess who you can get a lot of really good things for? Damian Lillard. My question for you is, what will it take for the Blazers to blow it up?
Damian to ask out. They're going to stay with him until he says he wants to leave.
Are we coming up to a point where it's a Reggie Miller situation in Indiana, which, by the way, this is we thought at some point in Reggie Miller's career, there was talks about him leaving, et cetera. He wasn't going to, and he never did, but it could have happened. Are we there with Damian Lillard, or are we close enough to a blow up where it is possible in the next 12 to 18 months?
If Lillard's going to leave Portland, it's now or never.
Bingo.
Frankly, I can't claim to know what he was going to do. We all thought he was going to, and he didn't do it.
My Twitter fingers were ready. The moment that broke, I was like, here we go. Josh, get ready on Zoom.
He never did. And the rumblings and the rumors of the Damian Lillard wants out have quieted to a stop.
It just feels so like it's the same circus, different clown. Sorry, same clown, different circus. Sorry, I had that completely backwards. That's exactly what it feels like with the Blazers, and I almost put them behind the Clippers. Actually, sorry, ahead of the Clippers. Sorry, I almost put them at 7, Clippers at 8.
Mm-hmm.
I just, at the end of the day, I'm closer in my mind to a Blazers blow up than I am to the Blazers not having to have the play-in game, because you have them in the playoffs, which is
no play-in.
I can't come around to that. I can't, because I think Golden State. We can go ahead and roll right into Golden State unless you have any more Blazers thoughts. I think Golden State is good enough to have retooled and be ready to be better than the Blazers. I think on paper, completely, they're better than the Blazers. And I think that's a big reason why they're ahead of them for me. They're also a better led team. They're less turmoil. There's just more things that I'm happier about, where if they do anything worse than 6, I think it's a failure of a season.
This Golden State team was the best in the league in 2015. The same one, basically, that they're rolling into this new season. Some different names to the role players, but at the core of it, you're still looking at Steph, Clay, and Draymond, right? Am I wrong in that sense?
No, yeah, you are. And Andrew Wiggins, of course.
It doesn't fit the system at all. They're 6 years older, frankly. That's all I've got to it. I hope that Clay is as good as Clay was. I think Clay plays a style of basketball that it's not going to affect him that way.
We'll get to that.
I don't think we're talking about a drives to the hoop hard kind of Derrick Rose ruins his career kind of thing. Clay's a spot-up shooter and should be fine, hopefully.
His jump shot's very heavy. He jumps a lot on his jump shot, so there may be a little bit there, but Does he defend the best?
This is not
guard on the other team?
Apparently, this is not your 2015 Warriors. Yeah, it's just my whole reason behind it. Well, you're running essentially the 2015 Warriors team in 2021.
Which is why I'm at 6.
I think they're going to win the play-in easily game.
Yeah.
7.
That's exactly why I have them at that 6, 7, whatever range, right? Like, they're not the 2015 Warriors. I think it's beyond the fact they're not the 2015 Warriors. So I think they have the potential to make the top 4 if they're completely healthy and they just steamroll everybody and Steph.
And Steph does what Steph did last year.
Correct.
It's a high bar.
And you add Clay to that.
Yeah.
Here's my 4 concerns and why they didn't get any higher than 6. I actually have 4 full points that are basically going to talk me out of them at 6, but I'm going to work them through with you because I think we didn't spend enough time with them on them in the free agency and the draft recaps.
What did they do in free agency?
Nothing really, but I just wanted you to make sure they did a couple. We'll get to it. So
the draft is a different conversation, but there's a reason I didn't factor that in.
Yeah, four points here. Steph is 33.
Yep.
You already mentioned that. So number 2, Clay's injury question / return, and I'm going to tell you why we were going to get to this today. This is live 2 Pointers podcast breaking this. No, it's not breaking this, but Bob Myers stated that it could be a slow process for Clay's return, and they are aiming for January.
Ooh. Wow. I said 7, assuming Clay was going to play in October.
Yes. Oh, yes. That is why I have them no higher than 6. That's why 6 is the stopping point. I'll clarify my drawing the line in the sand at 8 and 9. There's another line in the sand. It's 6 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, this super, super, super confusing roster structure.
Yeah.
Drafting Kuminga and Moody, who, by the way, this is my top 5 favorite player draft team. You had yours with the Rockets. This is mine. These are my top 2 favorite players in this year's draft, who I'm the highest on. They're both 18 and 19 years old. Moody's 19. Kuminga's 18. You also want to try to win a title with Steph at 33? Help me understand. However,
I think because the draft went on while Kerr and Popovich were in Tokyo, I think that Kerr let Pop draft for him. That's my answer.
No. That theory could pick up traction. I would be careful saying that.
Tell me that Kuminga and Moody aren't massive Spurs guys.
I don't know. I couldn't divulge that right now. They signed Nemanja Bjelica. I think that's probably one of the most underrated signings of the offseason. They plucked him from the Kings. They plucked him from a Heat team that could have used him last year. He's one of the better role players.
I mean, it fits the system.
Love him or hate him, he's one of the best role players in the NBA.
Fits the system. Very well.
Bring back Andre Iguodala, who hasn't shown me any reason not to have Andre Iguodala on your team. It's very Sean Livingston-esque.
2015, run it back.
No, listen, no, it's very Sean Livingston-esque. If they brought Sean Livingston back and he played 4 minutes a game, I think it would be a good thing because of the leadership. Andre Iguodala knows those guys. I think if they didn't get him, there's a big leadership gap there between Steph and the rest of the team. Avery Bradley, they just picked up literally today. A good on-ball defender and nothing else. And I'm not writing home to mom about Otto Porter, but Otto Porter to me is a better player than Kelly Oubre, who they had last year. And that's why I'm
once
okay
again,
with that.
Fits the system.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm telling you. I think they had a better free agency and draft conglomerate together. I think that made up a lot of it. Can I tell you the scariest point of them all is the 4th one that I haven't even mentioned yet? The one that I think makes or breaks the next 3 years, quite frankly, not just the next 1 year. Draymond Green's regression.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a conversation that I think a lot of people are afraid to have. I think we need to have it.
Do you remember when you talked about the Splash Brothers in Golden State that you included Draymond in that? People forget that happened.
What do you mean? Me? No. When did I say that for real?
No, I mean that was just that was a normal thing that in 2015 Draymond Green.
Oh, not me specifically.
Splash Bro.
Got it.
He was lethal from 3 in the 2015-2016 time period, and then it just disappeared.
I mean regression across the board.
I
think last year,
but that was just the most egregious thing. I
think last year, homework. I haven't given homework in a while. Homework. If you're nerdy basketball out there, listeners, please go look at Draymond Green 2 years ago on paper and on film, and look at him on paper now. Last year, the last 45, 50 games of the season when they really had to rely on him in big spots to be a playmaker, to be a defender.
He's not a playmaker.
Go deep dive. Steph was the only one. I'm saying they had to have him move the ball, and he had to be a guy that could be able to make that pass, and he didn't multiple times. I don't mean playmaker literally bring the ball up. I mean playmaker is, and they have to be able to rely on him in a big spot, either low block, whatever, right? But
yeah, no, that's what I meant.
And he's
not a play he can't do it.
So I think it's a conversation that a lot of people need to start having. I can't not be high on my 2 favorite draft picks, Josh. It burns my soul to say that.
They're projects, though.
I know.
That's the thing it's why I didn't include them when I was
Still
talking about
confusing.
This.
It's still confusing.
There's no Moody, maybe. I think Moody under Kerr's leadership, because I think he's a phenomenal coach, will have a much bigger impact than Kuminga. Kuminga is going to have nil impact to the team this year because he's young. He's a project.
I'm fine with him playing in the G League again. Like, I'm totally fine with that. That was it. That was all I had on the Warriors other than the question. So
I think the Warriors should shoot 53s a game. That's my advice.
I like it. You're literally Kevin O'Connor got a 12-month head start on that take.
Yep.
Kevin O'Connor last year said that Steph should shoot 16 threes a game.
With an aging Steph Curry and an unsure about his knees Klay Thompson, gather a team of lethal three-point shooters, which they started by getting Porter, getting Bielitsa. Just shoot 53s a game.
Do it, man. Break the game. Why not?
Yeah.
Don't hate the game, hate the player.
That's the optimal strategy, I think, for Golden State at this point in time.
We got to get.
If you're going for a title with 33-year-old Steph,
we got to get to the top 5. But I do want to ask you this because we are not really running out of time, but we are. Josh, what aspect of this Golden State team do you feel the absolute best about for them to win a playoff series? And what aspect of this team do you feel absolutely worst about? Give me best case scenario. Give me, or to be a top 6 team, and you don't have them at 6. I'm using the example where I have. What's the best thing about this roster that propels them to the next level this year? What's the worst thing about this roster?
The best thing is I think Steph's going to give us another ridiculous year. I think it's the last, I
think it's the only answer too.
I think it's the last. I can't believe what I just saw year that we're going to get out of Steph, but it's going to be the last. I can't believe what I just saw. Greatest shooter of all time kind of season that we're reminding ourselves of every moment.
I think that's the only answer to that. That's part of the question too. That's the scary part.
As for what doesn't get them there, I think it's that if it ends up being just him, if Draymond falls by the wayside, if Klay's not healthy, if Andrew Wiggins, he just doesn't fit in the system. I can't, I like Andrew Wiggins as a basketball player, and it just doesn't fit in what Golden State's trying to do.
All right. That's I wanted to see where your head was at since you didn't have them at 6. To recap, you had Clippers at 8, Golden State at 7, and Portland at 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. 5. This is where it gets nitty-gritty.
Right back where they were last year, Dallas Mavericks. No change.
2.
0 change in Dallas.
Honestly, we hit the panic button 3 times, and here we are putting them back at 5 with
running
basically the same roster.
Run it back with Dallas. I think I may have put Dallas at 4 or 3 in my preseason rankings last year, though. So a bit of a regression of what I expect. I think this 5 is a better 5 than last year.
Correct.
I think it is a overperforming Dallas, and it's a real hope that Jason Kidd figures out where to put Kristaps Porzingis in this offense. It doesn't. A lot of people may say this weighs on Luka. I don't think this weighs on Luka at all. It is, can Jason Kidd put Kristaps Porzingis in this offense? That's the question that's going to hang over Dallas this whole season. And if he can't figure it out, you've got 2 options in Dallas: either trade Kristaps to get Luka help, or watch Luka walk. Those are your options.
That's it.
If you can't figure it out, because the guy wants help, and you've got an all-star power forward, 7'3" power forward standing right there, and Carlisle couldn't figure out how to put him in. Just got to figure something out.
So I think it's a confusing puzzle in Dallas because Porzingis is the piece that, like you said, is going to make a difference. However, it's beyond the fact that it might not even be Porzingis. Somebody might step up. It might be Tim Hardaway Jr. I don't think it is. I'm just throwing him out as an example. Well, my point is the secondary scorer. That's what Dallas lacks, is the secondary scorer. Can they get it from the other parts of their team? Well, JJ Redick just retired. So he was supposed to help that a lot off the bench. But Ken Sterling Brown, I think Reggie Bullock was I think it was probably the best role player acquisition of the offseason. Reggie Bullock in Dallas. I think that's huge for everyone involved. They traded for Moses Brown, big man backup depth, whatever, right? I think what scares me the most, and I'm going to I love that you brought the kid thing into it, because as you've said before, you've kind of put that out there. He was the reason that Giannis is what it is today. He was the person that said, Giannis, have the ball and play, play point guard. So can he do the same for Porzingis? Same guy who's
not that. No, I mean, you mean a different strategy? Like I did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what you were implying anyway, right? You were implying a different place for Porzingis to play. The other thing that scares me though is on top of that is 5 weeks ago he was like, I want a quote unquote fresh start. I was ready to be gone, like da 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 da. And now he's like, this is a quote fresh start. Porzingis in his head into the media, he's in it.
This is a fresh start.
I hope
Porzingis was frustrated that he was not put into the offense. That is all Rick Carlisle. Not bashing Carlisle as a coach, but Carlisle didn't factor him into the offense. Luka's begging for help, and the second best player on your roster isn't being effectively put into the offensive scheme. I'm not saying Jason Kidd's going to have the answers, but the step forward Dallas needs is for Jason Kidd to have the answers.
Let's piggyback Jason Kidd for my question. I have 2 more points.
If one thing I will say, with just backing on the Giannis point, the last thing you could call Jason Kidd is to say that he's not innovative. He will try some crazy stuff.
He did as a player as well.
He did as a player
and coach.
The stories of the things that he did in Milwaukee are outrageous. And that might just be what Dallas needs right now.
Cannot wait to read the Mirror and Fader
book. It might just be what Dallas needs right now, is someone who's willing to try anything.
Great transition to my question. Josh, this season and this season only, who has more to prove? Head coach Jason Kidd or Kristaps Porzingis? Before you say the easy answer, think about it. Think about it.
Kristaps has more to prove. He doesn't produce this year. He's out. Kidd would stay even if he doesn't produce.
Yeah, it clearly takes a lot to get fired in Dallas. Rick Carlisle didn't make the playoffs in 10 years and he kept his job. Any other person did that for 10 years.
Yeah,
lose your job. I think that answer, if I didn't say it this season, I think it's Kidd, and I think it's Kidd by a long shot, because at the end of the day, the scary part with the Mavs is that Kidd is willing to make those changes and innovations, but they, as the Mavericks organization, are also willing to ride with him, it sounds like. Mm-hmm. So I think he has a lot to prove, but I don't think it means job level. I don't think it means he loses his job. I think he, as a coach, has a lot to prove. I think he learned a lot under Vogel. I think he learned a lot with LeBron. I think he learned a lot in general in that Lakers system, organization, whatever it may be. I think he learned a lot. I think there was a lot he took away. Because if you told me that the same guy that was in Milwaukee, who wasn't an assistant in Los Angeles, is the guy now, like changing the scene in Dallas, fine, right?
Yeah.
Here's my last thing on the Mavericks. The West is always really weird. There's always a really weird team in the NBA that kind of goes, who's that 2020 Heat? The 2021 Suns? Who's that weird? Josh, I think this is like, this is boiling up to be the like LeBron 07 Cavs type deal, where it's Luka just absolutely entirely wills them. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't think it is. But don't be like jaw dropped when I record this clip in 8 months and I go, by the way, Luka's that good. This team is the 07 Cavs, the 2021 Suns, the 2020 Heat. This is the team that, like, you're going to go, what the heck just happened? Why are the Mavericks losing 4-1 in the finals? How are they even there? So anyway, glad we don't disagree on the Mavs. I just think the Mavs, we really got to dissect them in the offseason. Actually, 3 times last season when we hit the panic button, 1, 2, and 3 strikes, you're out. It's just good that we finally, like, we feel good about this.
I'm going to be
team.
Patient this year with the Mavericks.
Absolutely. That
panic still button got 5th place. And I thought
look, the panic button is put back in the closet, and I will not get it out until at least the 3rd month.
I want to see Jason Kidd try some interesting stuff. That's what I want.
Yeah. All right, number 4.
Number 4, and I honestly feel like because of how much I believe in them, I'm putting them low here. But it's because of a key piece they won't have for part of the season. Number 4, the Denver Nuggets.
Number 4 for me is the Denver Nuggets.
Caveat, if Jamal Murray was healthy to start the year, I have them higher. I'm talking Jamal Murray with this team, without Jamal Murray, somehow held on to the third place spot in the Western Conference. That was very competitive. That team with Jamal Murray, I'm talking about win the Western Conference contention team here. It's all young talent, like almost all of the talent's under 25, getting better. Denver's I'll be perfectly honest and frank here. I'm rooting for Denver in the Western Conference this season.
Last time you rooted
for the Denver Nuggets.
Last time you rooted for a team with an international player, they won the NBA championship, Josh. So be careful with your words. I'm glad someone's going to get that. Someone's going to get that.
I'm rooting for the Denver Nuggets.
All right. I'm going to use your words. Full caveat. No matter Jamal Murray's health, I have them before.
Yeah, no, this is me putting them with like Murray's going to miss a lot of time. I'm putting them at 4.
I have them at 4 if he was fully healthy and he was averaging 25 a game.
Oh, no, I've got them higher.
Full transparency.
I think they're loaded.
However, this prediction, with or without Jamal Murray at 25 points a game with no torn ACL, this team is still the 4th team in the West to me. But I think it's quite literally the top 4, and it doesn't really matter at that point. These 4 are going to be the top 4, assuming full health. It's just a matter of where you have them. I'm not saying they're going to be the 4th best team. I'm saying at the end of the season, going into the playoffs, where they really do turn it up no matter what. Obviously, when you have the reigning MVP, we'll get to MVP next week. But yeah, when you have a team like the Nuggets who just all around like play for each other and play with each other, especially after an injury like Jamal Murray's, it pained me to put him at 4. But 3 teams in front of them, I think, are perennially, going to be better if they're healthy. Outside of that, Josh, I mean, they didn't really do anything. It's a really big run it back, re-sign Will Barton, re-sign Austin Rivers, re-sign JaMychal Green, and they got Jeff Green. I think that was really underrated, even though Jeff Green's more of a leadership presence now.
Give Michael Porter Jr. his payday.
Absolutely. That was something we were going to – I knew somebody was going to say it. 4-year or 5-year, $207 million.
Worth every penny.
Worth every penny of it. Absolutely.
It's probably a deal, honestly.
So
for what Michael Porter Jr. is going to become, it's probably a deal.
I'm the same guy, by the way, that like thought he was going to be the next like LeBron James in high school. So I'm going to take a step back on what I said originally 5 years ago before we did the podcast. The back injury scared me. They genuinely, like, I sold all of my Michael Porter Jr. stock. I don't have any left. None. I now am starting fresh and buying all my Michael Porter Jr. stock back up because I'm like, this guy's going to be great, assuming he continues to stay healthy. Josh, let's tie the Nuggets up so we can get to the top 3 where people really, 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 really care.
I'm just saying in a few years from now, they're not there yet, but when you're looking at Michael Porter Jr. is 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Jamal Murray is 24 years old.
Nikola Jokic, under 25 guy. That's crazy.
Nikola Jokic is 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 years, and that trio's dominating the Western Conference, and there's no one comes close.
That's fine. That's fine. This year they had to be at 4 for me.
This year it had to be. I'm just saying, mark my words, if you keep those 3 together, it's coming, and there's no stopping it.
Feels very 2021 Milwaukee Bucks-esque. Outside of reigning MVP Nikola Jokic, Josh, who on this Nuggets roster can be the biggest X factor to help them try to win the West?
Are we not considering Porter that? And are we taking Porter out of the?
I'm taking Jamal Murray out of it because he's the second best player on that team.
Porter.
Okay, let's take Porter out of it for curiosity's sake.
I'm the second best guy here.
Oh yeah,
I love Jamal.
That's fine.
But he might become the second best guy this year.
Pre-extension, I wrote that question 2 days ago. Pre-extension, pre-Michael Porter Jr., any kind of hype today?
I'll throw in another name in there just because.
Thank you.
Actually, I'll go wild because we're saying X factors. I'm going to get away from all of the names people are thinking. Facundo Campazzo can run an offense with Murray out. You said X factor. You didn't say like random star player.
Yeah, I did. I wish this was a visual podcast. I was like, whoa.
You said X factor. That's
I did. No, I get it. That's wild. I love it.
Facundo Campazzo is the X factor with the team. He's one of the best passers I've seen in a long time.
He came in last year and like helped them lead where they were. Like, I mean, he was a great player for them.
If you guys haven't watched Campazzo pass, like he's one of the best passers in the NBA right now. Like it's not close. somebody's got to distribute the ball with Murray out. Someone's got to run the offense. He's going to run the offense. He's going to get the ball to Porter, to Jokic, to Gordon.
I think you save a lot of. I think Jokic regresses. We'll talk about MVP next week. I think Jokic regresses in terms of
he can't get better. He's obviously going to regress. He's not going to do
I don't mean,
more
no,
than he did this past year.
Let me clarify. I don't mean Jokic regresses. I think they are naturally going to let him play less because they'll be able to win games because you have Porter Jr., Will Barton, and Composite playing together. I think you play those three together while Jokic is on the bench, you're fine. Absolutely. I like that pick. That's why I wanted to take Porter out of it for curiosity's sake, but I'm glad you really thought that through. All right. Are we done with the Nuggets?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. You want me to go? You want to go? What's up? Where are we at with number 3? This is where it matters.
The Los Angeles Lakers.
I'm going to let this one build.
You should be happy I put them this high.
Well,
I actually didn't know what to do with them to begin with. This is what I settled on.
Well, you need to make sure you stay sitting down because at number 3, I have the Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh, wow. All right. That kind of I didn't expect that, actually. I thought you were going to say Utah right now. That's where I would have thought you would have put Utah.
No, and I promise you, in 9 months, this clip's being deleted. This clip doesn't see the light of day in 9 months if the Utah Jazz are like horrid or they don't finish in 3rd or 2nd or 4th or whatever the heck they
Utah in a minute.
I'm burning this clip if I eat my words on Los Angeles, I'm burning this clip to the ground.
Yeah, so my whole thing two things for why I didn't put the Lakers higher. I think they get the 3rd on pure talent.
Absolutely. I hope so.
Because you got LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook. Here's the 2 things. I still don't think that the Lakers have a plan for how Russell Westbrook and LeBron James are going to work in the same offense. And 2, I hate their supporting cast. So I couldn't say that more strongly. Outside of the big 3 in LA, I don't like anything else.
Can you give me more than that though? Because I want to discuss it because you and I haven't discussed it on record yet. Even in the free agency recap we did. We really just kind of brushed it over.
Assembled a hodgepodge of, is Carmelo going to work there with LeBron? Yeah, he had Carmelo worked great with Dame in Portland, but he's 37 and I think has kind of overperformed the past 2 years. Trevor Ariza, I feel like has been there before. I feel like they've tried this before. I don't know if they've actually had it, but Trevor Ariza feels like the kind of guy they've tried this already.
They did. He was on the 08-09 team.
Okay.
The team that lost to the Celtics.
I like the addition of Wayne Ellington. I'm not going to say anything bad about that. Moving down, bringing back Dwight Howard. Terrible idea. DeAndre Jordan now plays there. Also not a good idea. Dwight Howard's a terrible locker room guy, frankly.
He was one of the biggest reasons that team rallied in the 2020 bubble playoffs. Dwight Howard was one of the glue guys for that bench. They loved him. They rallied around him. You are nuts for Dwight Howard.
Walked him? They let him walk? I don't really believe that.
They brought him back. This is the run it back here. This is get this done. Let's get everybody one more chip. Dwight Howard was not the problem in 2020. Let's be complete. They won the title in 2020. Rondo and Dwight Howard were 2 of the biggest teammate impact guys LeBron's ever played with.
Rondo, yeah, sure.
I loved them both. They were great. I hated Dwight Howard for 5 years when it comes to his leadership and his locker room stuff. That year he was unbelievable. Him and JaVale were they were unreal locker room guys. The same thing we said about JaVale McGee, by the way, who is now on the Nuggets, mind you.
No, yeah, I love JaVale. I'd say everything that you just said about Dwight about JaVale. I just don't believe it with Dwight.
And Dwight's he's not going to want to play more than 15 minutes. He's going to want to play in the playoffs when it really matters. That's why I'm excited for him, to be clear on Dwight.
Outside of Wayne Ellington, the shooting that the Lakers added, Malik Monk and Kendrick Nunn. Kendrick Nunn, who outrageously is 26 years old, despite it being his 3rd year in the NBA. And Malik Monk, who is come from a Hornets fan, the streakiest scorer I've ever seen and really fits the Lakers meme team narrative of a couple years ago. If I ever saw any of the acquisitions fit that. It feels like LeBron James kind of like this was an open gym and they were playing pickup basketball. And LeBron and AD strolled in and just kind of picked some guys out of a lineup and threw it together. I think these are a lot of good basketball players, but there's no like consistency to this roster at all.
So
sometimes it works out. Like when they won the title, it worked.
That team was, it was a great like team basketball.
But this time, will it work? Do you think it's going to work this time?
So do you know the example when people say, like, especially in football, it definitely happens because football's topical right now, I'll say it. Did this team lose the game or did the other team win the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
My example for the Los Angeles Lakers and why they're going to, I think, be hopefully in that final series or in the Western Conference Finals fighting to get in and hopefully win a title as a fan is that I liked what they got rid of. It's the example of like, did this team lose the game? I like what they got rid of more than I like what they brought in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
That's answering only one of your questions. So let me divulge this. I defended Dwight Howard till I was blue in the face just now. And unless he proves me wrong, which he hasn't, 2020, he has a championship ring now. Dwight Howard is a guy that will help you win a playoff series and win a playoff, win a championship, quite frankly, whether it's impact wise or whether it's as a leader, whether it's on beside of whoever. Wayne Ellington, unless he just all of a sudden like loses an arm, he's going to be a great shooter. I'm excited to have Wayne Ellington. I'm just over the moon about that.
Like I said, I didn't say anything bad about the Wayne Ellington acquisition.
No, no. Ariza's there, more of kind of like that Jared Dudley aspect where he's just there to be there. And I'm fine with that. Melo, believe it or not, is literally there to catch threes in the corner and shoot them and make them at a high efficiency, which, by the way, Melo was a top 20 shooter in percentage last year. DeAndre Jordan is the one I've been out on Jordan since Lob City, and I'm still out on him to this moment. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter after that. Malik Monk, Kendrick Nunn, who cares? Like those two guys are going to play. It's just a matter of how much and how bad they might or might not be. And then Rondo, same thing with the Ariza Melo point. Rondo's there to be Rondo. Him and LeBron are like BFFs, and it's the funniest thing ever. If you had told me that 10 years ago, I would have told you were nuts.
It's kind of funny.
So to defend myself and to defend this roster, no, a lot of these players aren't very good. Let's just address the elephant in the room.
A lot of these players aren't very good. Yeah, basically.
But they're good together.
Mm.
I as a fan and I as a basketball person, I guess we're going to call this podcast or whatever, I am happy with it until they prove me wrong, because last year's team, it can only go uphill from there.
So my thing, you can't say they're good together because they haven't played together. And that's
on paper. Oh yeah, this is entirely on paper, of course.
Yeah. I have one question for you to turn the tables on it about the Los Angeles Lakers.
Okay.
LeBron James will turn 37 years old in December.
Unfortunately.
Is this the year that LeBron James starts to have a noticeable regression?
So for the listeners, I'm gonna preface my answer, not to them, but to you, so they can understand my answer. We've been doing this now. December will be a year, but we've been friends for like ever. I knew you were going to ask me that question, so I'm very well prepared for this answer. However, it was the one I hated that you were going to ask me. I would rather you have asked me, will Russell Westbrook work? And I'm not going to lie to you, I have no answer for that. I don't know.
I didn't ask you that because no one has an answer.
I do think it can work, but I don't know the answer.
It can.
I'm going to parallel the fact that we also thought Tom Brady would regress 4 years ago, and he has not. LeBron,
not a one-to-one comparison, but go on.
I'm using the guy that's older than they should be and has not regressed. I'm actually going to tie the Russell Westbrook answer to why I think he does regress. I think LeBron regresses because he chooses to, and I think they let Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis kind of be the 1-2. And I know what you're thinking. You asked me this 3 months ago, or a month and a half, whatever long a free agency was. LeBron's willing to do it if it means he only has to play 48 games. and then he's ready and fully healthy, where he's ready to be in attack mode in Western Conference semis, Western Conference finals, if they're there. Yeah, I'm good with it. Regress, dude. Be the third best player on a championship. Guess what? You're still going to be in that top 2 player conversation. He's not afraid of that. He's chasing everything. He's chasing MJ. We know the whole thing, right? He's chasing him to win a title. What do you have to do to win a title? Anything you need to. What does a guy like LeBron do? Anything he needs to. So that's where my answer is. I think I coupled the Westbrook answer and I coupled the one that I hated you asked me that. I think LeBron regresses because Russell Westbrook's going to be the second best player on that team.
I think, and that's in the situation that I agree that the situation works. I think if LeBron steps back physically and if he works less physically and more mentally, because I'd be hard pressed to name any player in the NBA with a better basketball IQ than LeBron James right now. Yeah, I mean, the Lakers probably going to win the Western Conference. It's the ideal, perfect scenario. If LeBron James steps back physically, lets the younger guys kind of take the lead and takes kind of that on-court coaching role, the Lakers probably win the West. I think they have it there. Whether that'll come to fruition, and that also means a healthy Anthony Davis, it's going to be hard.
Lastly, on the Lakers, before we move on, I made this choice at 3, and I also gave you my answers with my brain and not with my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because only and entirely because we thought last year's team on paper was, oh my gosh, Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, the cast of whatever, right? Like, I thought that team was good on paper. Everyone did, quite frankly, in terms of free agency. I actually genuinely, in my brain and my heart, felt this offseason I was a lot happier with. So I'm not going to overzealous it. And I think if they can keep it together and stay healthy with a lot of the average age, yes, I feel really good about this season as a prediction, as a fan, of course. Josh, number 2 and number 1, because quite frankly, it's a coin toss.
It is.
It is. See, this is the most boring Western Conference episode we've ever done. Out of 2.
The 2 teams that finished 1-2 last season, and I flipped back and forth on where to put them, but I'm just going to go with saying, from a regular season standpoint, Utah first and Phoenix second.
Yeah, I have them flipped, but for the same reasons. I think the Suns are going to be the better team in the playoffs.
From a regular season standpoint.
Yeah, but here's my
I think the Suns
issue.
probably are a better playoff team. Like, I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, I think Utah probably wins more regular season games.
Here's my issue, though. It's almost bad if the Jazz come in first again and then implode again.
They didn't implode. They just didn't win against the Clippers, who
that Clippers series was I'm not going to go any further. My point is,
they lost a hard-fought series. I didn't think it was an implosion.
For where they are and where they should be, I almost think they shouldn't come in 1. They shouldn't come in at first. They almost shouldn't, for the expectation's sake. Phoenix, however, I could not look past the fact that free agency, this team is running it back and they got better. I can't look past that. I can't look over the fact that they literally said, well, this team kind of overperformed. They were almost a year ahead of where they should have been. This would be my team this year, where you're like, who's the 2020 Heat? Who's the 2021 Bucks example I gave for the Mavericks? I was giving the Mavericks one as a long shot. Realistically, I think the Suns last year were that team, obviously, making it that far. But this was going to be the year I predicted them to be that much better anyway, assuming that Devin Booker and Chris Paul worked together. And they did, right? So I feel like I didn't say it enough. I did have them high last year. Let's be frank. I mean, I had them, just inside the playoffs. No, did I not think they were going to be at 2? I just like Chandler Hutchinson, JaVale McGee, Elfrid Payton. They added those 3 guys and Landry Shamet. They re-signed Frank Kaminsky. They re-signed Cameron Payne. They re-extended Chris Paul to a really good team-friendly deal in the last 2 years. This is a 2-year move. This is a 2-year Suns window for Chris Paul. After that, it might be Devin Booker gone too, because they might be really, really bad. I don't know. So
I don't think Phoenix changed all that much. I like the Landry Shaman edition. I think it's balanced by the losses of Torrey Craig and Etwan Moore. The reason Utah brought back all of their key guys and got better more significantly. Supporting cast additions in Utah. If you thought it was hard when Rudy Gay was on the floor, well, this year while he's out, Hassan Whiteside will be guarding the rim. Not to mention, when Rudy Gobert's not there. I said Rudy Gay because they also signed Rudy Gay, who's also going to be a role player in Utah this year. In addition to trading for Eric Paschall, taking a good rookie from Golden State to add into their system. Utah went 52-20. A lot of it was because of some elite shooting. Elite shooting, great defense, and adding role players that I think are a step up from what Phoenix had. I'm making no points about what's going to happen in the playoffs, just from a look at the 82-game season.
This is a regular season prediction, quite frankly.
Yeah, Utah.
That's right.
I can't get over how much I love the construction of Utah's team, and I can't explain to you why it hasn't worked in the playoffs yet. I don't know. I don't know why. I can't explain why.
And I'll look past it for 82 games, but the moment we do a playoff preview,
yeah,
I don't know what to do with myself. I think the Eric Paschall one, this is not me speculating whatsoever. I don't know anything. I don't have any insider sources. Duh. We're not that big yet. My point being, Donovan Mitchell, the ankle thing, the miscommunications, the possible locker room mishaps with Rudy Gobert a year and a half ago, whatever. I don't know if we ever truly got a sign that he wasn't happy. But the Jazz, of course, are going to try to make their number one guy happy, right? Bringing in Dwayne Wade, his idol. I think that's a really big deal there. But I think the Paschall thing is a lot bigger and deeper than just the fact they brought in Eric Paschall, who was actually really good his rookie year. They were best friends in high school and they played high school basketball together.
Mm-hmm.
So that move is deeper to the level that they want Mitchell to be the happiest and healthiest guy they can, or else they're not winning more than 50 games or 40 games if Mitchell is not his best possible player. So, yeah, we can push the Gobert thing aside. We'll talk in 82 games from now, Josh, and we'll figure out why the Jazz are probably the most disappointing defensive playoff team in the last 20 years. Nonetheless, by the way,
Jazz thing ever not get it done in the playoffs.
We've made it this far, by the way. People are probably going to go, well, why did you skip the Lakers questions? Josh answered all three of my Lakers questions. I had three of them for the Lakers. My question for you you want me to do the Jazz or the Suns first?
Whatever order feels good for you.
I'll do the Jazz first because I'm at the bottom of my screen. I'm going to ask you the first one first because I think it makes sense if I do. Josh, are you as high on, or less high on the Jazz than you were last season? I know where you have them at 1. I want realistically, expectation-wise, you're just as high or higher. I know you're there, right?
In compared to how I was preseason last year?
Yeah. Let's say that. You're higher on them this year than you were last year.
As far as where I was at the end of the regular season last year, probably about equal.
Okay. So
I love the addition of Rudy Gay quite a bit.
I do. I do too.
I think that Hassan Whiteside is one of the best defensive centers in the NBA.
Absolutely.
And he's been forgotten about because he's been in Sacramento.
Richaun Holmes has been playing above him.
Yeah.
Richaun Holmes
is great. I'd love for Richaun Holmes. But it's terrifying that Hassan Whiteside's going to be the guy that rolls into the rotation when Rudy Gobert goes out. Higher, I guess, yeah.
So I also like Jared Butler. I think Jared Butler, if he can stay healthy, is a really, really good glue guy off the bench if he actually ends up playing. I think Derek Favors' departure hurts them, but that's about it for the Jazz for me. The second question is, I think, really my favorite question I asked you. I asked you last week as well for a couple teams. The Jazz, quite frankly, Josh, we already addressed what has happened in the past, but in order to win the West, the Jazz have to do blank.
Such a broad question. So I'm assuming you mean the Western Conference playoffs.
To win the West.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. To win the West, the Jazz have to do blank.
Hit big, have other guys beyond Donovan Mitchell hit big shots in the clutch.
That's why I'm glad that I am doing the show with you, because I knew your answer was not going to be as simple as not be bad in a playoff series defensively.
Guys, somebody other than Donovan Mitchell has to hit a big shot in crunch time.
I think that's actually literally what it comes down
Whether
to.
it's Conley or it's Ingles or it's Bogdanovich, one's got to do it.
If we're taking the elephant in the room out with, can Quinn Snyder figure out a way to win a playoff series in a unique defensive manner? Yes, I think Donovan Mitchell not being the only one hitting a shot is the unique answer there. On the Suns, and then we can wrap it up, because I love the West. It was actually supposed to be more simple, and we spent more time in the West. Fun, right? Here we are. Looking forward to next week when it's all MVP and speculative stuff. Phoenix, you've already given me a pretty good answer on who or what you think of them and how they didn't really improve. We disagreed there, but Phoenix is still a good team. What on this team is the one weakness that could prevent them from getting back to the finals and winning it all? Do you believe me now when I said my questions were harder for the West?
Yeah. Gosh, that's tough.
So is this an answer of, do you not know a weakness for the Suns, or do you not know which answer to pick? That scares me.
I don't know a weakness. I think it's just a situation of, and I think we kind of talked about it with all the injuries last year. I think Phoenix is going to be able to replicate what they did last year.
I think this was the year.
But last year, all of the other massive contenders collapsed around them.
Yep.
And if that doesn't happen, then they don't get there.
That's right.
If that makes sense.
So this is the year you think they were actually supposed to do it. Weird, right?
It
could do it.
All of the big, I think that they're going to be just as good as they were last year. I think the fact that when you're looking at the core, you got two real young guys in Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, and then you got Chris Paul, who's at the tail end of his career. Chris Paul is not going to progress at this point in his career. He's going to regress. Hope Booker and Ayton progress. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the weakness is there for Phoenix. I mean, they were a hair-thin margin away from winning finals.
All right. Well, Josh, what a fun hour and 45-minute Western Conference preview. I look forward to discussing MVP, Most Improved Player, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Coach of the Year with you next week.
It's going to be some outrageous off-the-wall stuff as we just...
I am excited.
I think we're going to actually have different opinions when we come into that one.
Oh yeah. Because it's not there's no clear MVP.
There's no clear anything.
Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, really even too. There's really a lot of just all over the place things. So,
yep.
Looking forward to it. Let's wrap it up.
This has been the 2 Pointers Podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm Trevor.
And we will see you soon.